Welcome to the third episode of our series of webinars dedicated to presenting you the nature of IFS Cloud Upgrade projects. Today with me are two fantastic colleagues, Klaas and Östen, that you might know. But guys, for those who didn't listen to our previous webinars, please quickly introduce yourself.
I'm Klaas Klaasman. I'm managing the project office at Novacura, and I work with great colleagues that we provide the global knowledge about IFS Cloud solutions that we implement and provide the methods and tools to make it quality assured and optimized.
Okay, I'm Östen Westman, and I'm responsible for our channel partner sales, where we sell IFS Cloud and Novacura Flow to our customers in Nordic countries.
And you guys, you're responsible for the current upgrade projects that we have in our company, right? In this episode, we are going to share our experience. And I mean, to do that correctly, you really need to have a solid background in the area. So I think it's good when we present this background shortly to the listeners, because it will give us a better credibility to share the experience. So Östen, maybe it's to you now. If you could quickly present our background in IFS.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Klaas and me and a lot of other colleagues at Novacura has a long background with IFS in different roles, and we've been partners with IFS since 2015. And we've been channel partner since 2016, and we actually been awarded the Global Channel Partner Award 3 times in 6 years, which is, I think, quite a good achievement. It's not an Oscar, but it's a very important recognition for us at Novacura that we actually doing good within this ecosystem of IFS and IFS Cloud.
And the last award we received in the last year, right? So we are like holding the current.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good partners out there, but I think the big thing here is that IFS footprint in general is growing now year by year, and being among the top partners is very, very important for Novacura, and we will be successful in being on the top there for a couple of times now.
Yeah, that's super. For our listeners interested in upgrade projects, it's especially important to mention how many upgrade projects have we delivered or we've been participating in. So could you bring some numbers?
I mean, as I said earlier, we've been working with IFS for almost 30 years now, many of us. And with Novacura, we've done around 30 upgrades the last 10 years. And we've been involved or are involved in 10 cloud projects as we speak, which is, I think it's a good evidence of our experience and knowledge in this area.
And I heard that we were a part of 6 IFS Cloud Upgrade projects as well. Right?
Yeah, and I think that is a little bit more cutting edge in that sense that there are not that many customers live on IFS Cloud yet. And in these upgrade projects that we've been participating in, and also the new implementation, we have faced quite a lot of challenges and new situations, but I think we've been very good in solving them together with our customers, IFS, and to sort of face those challenges up front and without losing tempo or momentum in the projects.
I mean, it's a partner role to be prepared for these challenges, and challenge doesn't mean it's something really wrong with the software or with the methodology. It means, I mean, it's complex situation, right? So it's.
I think the confidence that you need to start these type of projects. If you look at the upgrades today, they are basically new implementations in some areas, and there you need to have a certain confidence or experience to actually dare to start that project. And it's one way of actually pushing the customer a little bit and holding back at some areas. So I think that's the mixed mode that you need to be in order to help your customer.
You can't predict and plan everything. You need to be prepared for something exceptional, right?
And I think, I don't know if we will touch that later, but with our project office that Klaas is heading, we always have a back office support where we can take issues or questions from a project in an upgrade, talk with our project office with the experience that we have there, and normally we can find one or several ways out of a certain situation.
And we should mention that there is almost 100 consultants behind the project office, right? So if we want to get some specific answer and analyze specific topic, there is a whole bunch of people who are willing to help and have competences, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course.
So project office its role is to like gather this experience and share it with the other people, right? It's one of the
Yeah, I mean, I have a smaller group of people that work directly with me,
Yeah.
and then we have, of course, access to all the others and work continuously with all the projects from sales to implementation and to go live and support.
So I'm asking about it because you, like no other in our company, you collect all this feedback from all the projects, right? And you try to build a knowledge database. So you're the right go-to person when it comes to
Yeah, and also to actually provide and assess the functionality and features and messages coming out from IFS, both from a functionality feature perspective and the whole part of life cycle management and tools and methodology.
So I'm very confident now that I invited the right person to talk about the challenges. Let's move forward then. Now, when it comes to these technical challenges, one of these is definitely dealing with modifications. And I mean, no matter if you talk about IFS clouds in that context, or if you talk about any other versions of IFS, you always need to start with identifying these modifications, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to decide what to do with them. So what are the problems connected to that phase?
Yeah, I think many of the customers out there are very familiar with this, that have used and upgraded IFS applications many times, and it's the same. You need to understand the new features and functionality and map them, and to see whether your modifications can go away, use standard functionality, or you need to redesign them to manage some of the new features and keep some of the modifications, or if you need to recreate them more or less as they were. However, with moving to IFS Cloud, the consequence from an evergreen perspective is worse than before, because you will have new features and updates, and you want to use them continuously, and with a certain release cadence, you need to adopt them. So right now we recommend that you at least take every third update, which is a quality update, and then at least once a year a functional release.
Which means you will be in that situation at least once a year, where you need to revise your modifications and decide what to do with them.
Yes.
We will come back to that later, because our recommendation is to keep your IFS core free of modifications, right? But before we explain how to achieve that, I would like to ask a question. Is there anything specific for IFS cloud upgrade projects in the context of dealing with modifications? I mean, is it harder to plan this on how to map it onto new functionalities versus the previous upgrades, or not? It's the same story.
Well, I think in a way it's harder, because IFS has now gone a full circle to move the full ownership of the solution to the customer. So the customers now is fully the owner of their configured, modified solution, and they need to manage that, and they can choose the partner, and they can choose how much they want to do of it themselves. And one of the partners can, of course, still be IFS, but it's definitely a change in modus operandum from IFS, that the whole solution management resides with the customer, and the customer should decide, and to be able to be in a position to decide which partner to use and how to evolve over time. You need to get educated, and you need to have a certain capacity to manage it.
And I think it's a totally new version, and this new user interface, and a lot of totally new functionalities, which makes this process of selecting which modifications should be replaced by standard features, this process is way more complicated now, right? Because you need to analyze much more new features.
It's a somewhat bigger scope from the sense that on one hand, now the whole application is available. Prior to IFS Cloud, actually you only installed the components you had in your license agreement. Now everything is installed, but you activate them. So that's a difference. And IFS has also consolidated a lot of their extensions into the core. So the number of features and which is great, of course. But the drawback is that there is more functionality. There are more fields. There are more things to actually consider when you look at how to use the functionality and then understand how they can replace your modifications.
But I think the price that you pay for modification is much higher. If you really need to keep a modification, you still need to be very smart how to sort of uplift it with every version that you actually need to adopt. And I think the preparation phase that we talked in an earlier episode of these webinars, we talked a lot about how do we prepare for this upgrade, and that is to rethink and maybe also rearrange how we work a certain process to avoid that modification. That's how costly it is from my perspective.
Yeah, and to counter what I just said with the greater number of features that you need to consider, and so IFS is of course also investing and has invested in the packaging for certain industries that sort of counterbalance this richness of features that it's more packaged. So that's really good.
But I would like to come back to your point, because I mean, you're referring to the evergreen situation that we will have. I mean, customers who will jump to the new IFS Cloud version, they will face this situation and they should expect one new release at least once a year. I mean, IFS would deliver it twice a year, but if they follow your suggestion, they will do the upgrades once a year.
Of course.
So if they keep core modifications, right, they need to deal with these modifications on yearly frequency, right?
Yeah.
Which is bad. So it's really good to somehow get rid of these modifications, keep the ERP core free of modifications. The question is how to achieve that. If you seriously see that you need something specific, you need specific solutions, specific automation, whatever you have in mind. So what do we recommend?
I mean, I think there is we try to recommend, can we find a standard process in the current version? Is that, or the current release? That is the first thing. The second thing is that to maybe extend on the outside, as we say. How can we add this functionality, maybe through a low-code platform or through some configuration in the solution? And the third and last option is to actually do a modification. But in that case, when you do a modification, you can do it smartly or you can do it quick and dirty. So then you also need to evaluate, okay, how long do we need to use this modification? Do we know that there is ongoing development of new features or functions that will cover this modification? So I think there are several ways of looking at it, but the important thing that you need to look at it up front, and you should not take the easy way out doing a modification without challenging it very, very much.
And the primary assumption is that you should keep your ERP core free of modification as long as you can.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if it means some compromises in certain areas.
But there's always, it's a business value question. And it's easy to talk about business value. It's very hard to evaluate at some point. So if one modification actually is quite small, but actually affects 1,000 users, compared to doing a complex modification that helps 1 or 2 users in terms of doing some smart reporting or calculations, there you have 2 different business cases to evaluate them. And me personally, I think things that actually affects a lot of people in their daily work is more worth to consider to do in a standard package.
I mean, in the old days when typical customer upgraded their ERP system, I'm not referring specifically to IFS customers, they were doing it on once 5-6 years, right? This consideration was less important because when you implemented the modification, it sustained with you for a couple of years, right? So it was like a good investment. Now, when you have this constant stream of new features, like 2 times a year, then you really need to think if you should do the modification or you can survive without it for the next couple of months, because then you've really...
But I think, a local platform fits very well if you look at your entire ecosystem and you want to have a seamless end-to-end process system support for end-to-end processes. Let's say if you have a separate CRM systems that should then be integrated and work very well with your customer order and fulfillment process, then to optimize that whole chain of events in the end process, then a local platform can really help optimizing that.
So in these projects, you sometimes use local platform to replace modifications, right? Do I understand it correctly, right?
Yeah, and a lot of modification is today, I'm sure a lot of customers can concur, is to actually make it easier to use IFS applications for certain user roles or to automate. And with both situations, you add some features and additional data to help that. I mean, that's typically a very typical scenario. It's more rarely that you apply new features in the MRP functionality, for example.
But another thing that comes to mind is also the fact that when we look at existing modifications in an upgrade, a lot of them are obsolete.
Yeah.
And the customer sometimes don't even know it, or we haven't used that for years, but still they have paid the fee for this modification for many years. So that gives some clue also that we should be able to challenge the modification in a much tougher way. Not taking, we need this, not take that for granted, and actually really deep dive into
I mean, the consequences of not eliminating them are way bigger than it used to be before in non-evergreen situation, right?
Yeah, and I also think a local platform fits very well where you want to provide digitalized services to your customers or suppliers, where you want them to have a self-service situation, so you can actually push some even administrative work to keep their own data up to date and things like that in very specific user interactions. And
so if I understand it correctly, in that situation, if there is a need for some, we could call it modification, when you need to expand your ERP, tune the processes, expand the processes, instead of modifying the ERP core, which is dangerous long-term in the evergreen context, you just implement it separately in a separate tool. You name it, low-code. We know we have our tool, Novacura Flow, in mind. You implement it there, you build all the necessary business logic in it, you build user interface, right? But it closely, deeply interact with core IFS data objects, right? So it actually directly operates on these objects, of course, via official API, right?
Yes.
So if the user uses Novacura Flow, for instance, application, the low-code based application, via its user interface, his operations affect the core database, the IFS database. So the other users could immediately see the results, right?
Yeah. So it's an additional layer on top of the ERP system, and you interacting using the official APIs. There are also the IFS Cloud Arena interface is using.
Yeah.
So
It's only one way to communicate with IFS Cloud.
and it's a fantastic situation for any low-code platform, because all of the IFS business logic is exposed, which is not the case with many other ERP vendors.
Yeah, but what makes Novacura Flow a special low-code tool for IFS is this deep ERP integration concept, where actually Novacura Flow doesn't keep any data internally. It only operates on the data that resists in the IFS system, right? And with that concept, you can treat Novacura Flow, the low-code platform, the business logic that is there, as additional layer to the ERP. It's not a separate application that interacts with the ERP from time to time, because it's like typical, but then it's a separate system. No, it's just additional layer. You could call it additional user interface. For the same
you can
system,
do that,
right?
but it's also a user interface from a layer where you have a business logic, but business logic is all the time using the IFS standard APIs, but do some processing, orchestration, automation in between. And when we do that, we can also, in these steps, integrate with other systems in the ecosystem, in the customer ecosystem, or their suppliers or customer systems.
To understand the benefits of that concept, so when you do it with low-code tools, when you keep this when you implement this in quotes modifications outside of the ERP core, then when you upgrade the ERP core to a newer version, you don't need to do almost anything with this application. You simply more or less reconnect it to a newer version of your ERP, right?
Yes.
More or less, because sometimes projections are changed, right? I mean, together with the newer version, right? And there are changes in projection in API.
Changes, yes. But to manage that, we have what we call our deep connector, the IFS REST OData connector that we've developed for the last 2-3 years, which then gives us two great advantages. One is that we don't just have the REST OData connector, we also have a packaged layer of components that actually is on an aggregated level compared to the IFS REST OData projections. So you have an aggregated level of work order reporting, shop floor reporting, warehouse management, with a set of components that is easier to use to manage the additional functions and features and integrations you need. And the other part is that the connector that we have that automatically reads the IFS projections can also manage and understand the changes between versions.
Versions of IFS.
Versions of IFS Cloud. So if we have a Flow application that resides on 22R1 and we upgrade then to 22R2, we can compare these two, understand the differences.
You mean compared to APIs, right? Like set of projections.
Pretty much compare the API sets of the two versions, and we can look at our apps and how they're built, and then highlight the changes, so we know exactly which calls actually are affected. And that puts us in a position to pretty much warrant that, yes, it will work.
I mean, even if it requires some adjustments, you will precisely know where to and what to adjust, right?
Yes, exactly.
And this makes it a perfect supplementary tool for the ERP system that exists in the evergreen context, right? Because without it, you will constantly need to like adjust your application. But with that ability to see the differences that guides you and shows you where to fix the problem, it's like prepared for the evergreen situation. I like this concept. So then to sum it up, so you recommend to keep the ERP core free of modifications because then you are much better prepared for the evergreen situation, and you will never get stuck with 2021 R1 because you can't upgrade because you implemented a lot of modifications. So now you are fully in the evergreen and you are prepared to evergreen. You usually suggest to review the whole list of new features delivered with IFS and also what will be delivered in the short future because we know the roadmap. And you usually suggest to consider the use of these instead of building something really specific. In case you have something really specific or you must expand your processes and, for instance, expose the system to your suppliers, then you recommend to use external tools like, for instance, Novacura Flow local platform to build these apps and to deeply integrate it with the ERP, right?
Yes.
So as a consequence, you do your best to not touch the core, not modify it, right? Okay, you said one important thing that you often you believe there is a lot new functionalities delivered with IFS Cloud that you see, and it's good to do this kind of analysis on which modifications should we map onto the new features. Do you have I'm expecting like a checklist that you can, like check and see, yeah, these are the typical modifications customers have in these domains, and these are the new functionalities that IFS Cloud offers, and you should like check.
Yeah. Yes, as Östen mentioned, challenge number one is to understand the IFS Cloud functionality and the feature of it, and how you can use it to meet your requirements. And the current requirements you have is the way you use the IFS applications today with modifications. A lot of customers, they don't know, they just use the system, so they don't know what is standard functionality or modifications. Yeah. But anyway, we have a good knowledge of all the areas where IFS has invested, all the areas where they added functionality because they brought in these other applications that they purchased over the years and so on. So there is a strategic purchasing with punch-out capabilities, for example, and you have scheduling and planning where IFS in the past have had on the manufacturing side, I think they called it advanced planning and maintenance planning board and the asset management side. And now that is reside with a modern and more up-to-date planning and scheduling engine, the so-called PSO engine. Then also you have in the project area with project reporting and also revenue recognition and project calculations where IFS have invested. And those areas are prone to customizations in the past. And also, as we talked about before, that many customers, they build and use these centralized service centers for managing invoicing and supplier invoicing and things like that. That multi-company features and functions you need in such centralized functions. Operative purchasing is another one. Can benefit from these multi-company features that IFS has added. But you still need to look out for some areas, but there are some areas that are on the IFS roadmap and that customer actually can engage with IFS to be part of.
Can you share one example of these? I mean,
yes,
something that you have in mind that is most expected.
In the asset management area, there's an importance to to keep people, service technicians, safe when they work, and they need to have control over shutting down their operations and controlling the power if the power is on or out, and also bring their machines and processes up to speed when they're done with their maintenance. And that needs to be a very rigorous and controlled process, which IFS has put in what they call isolation orders and work permits. That area is one area where it's still lacking, and IFS invites, I think, the customer community to engage with them to bring a better solution in that area. So there are still areas that.
But we know they are working.
We know the areas, and we also have.
I'm sorry. I must confirm one thing, because this webinar might be watched in the future. So when you said it's still lacking, you're referring to 2023 R1 version, right?
And in my last example here, it's also 2023 R2 is still lacking.
Okay,
But I think this is, on a very high level, this is a generic problem with any given ERP. Many customers today, they don't utilize the current functionality. And even though they do a big bang implementation, they upgrade 5 years later, they upgrade 5 years later again, they're still not using percentage-wise, not clear, maybe 30-40% at best. There are still a lot of white space that haven't been utilizing. Imagine bringing on modifications and coming into an evergreen situation with 2 releases every year. The backlog of functionality that they can use will increase extremely fast. So how do we change that from being very reactive, this is what is available now, to be more proactively read the release notes when they are released, planning 6 months ahead. This is this process we can utilize. That is the big trick. This is what really needs to happen to reap the value out of the cloud solution. And I think one tool is to use a local platform. Another one is to learn themselves a lot about what you can do in the interface, what you can do with configurations, because as Claus mentioned earlier on as well, that it is actually the customer who's owning the solution from that point now. The customer needs to do it themselves or invite partners to help.
Who would do that on behalf of them, I think, I mean, when I listen to you, it looks like you can have 1 day long visit at any customer, and you can talk about when you just see their industry, you could probably guess number of modifications they have implemented in their current installation, and you'll be in 80% accurate, and then you can guide them easily on how to benefit from the new features and how to get rid of that.
Yeah, we have our library of those areas, and then I also have my colleagues to reach out to expand on that. So. Yeah,
so that's 1 day long visit might be worth of few months work for the person who doesn't know the new features and what's typical, like a candidate to replace. Okay, let's move forward. I think another challenge that customers will face is the new API. We mentioned that, right? It's the whole new REST OData API is totally different from the old one based on Oracle PL/SQL. And I think it brings a lot of challenges. My major question is, I mean, assuming that the customer have chosen the managed cloud option, can they still use the old PL/SQL interface, or they have to switch to OData?
The short answer is that they have to switch to OData, and then there are some exceptions to that. And from an integration point of view, you can still use the IFS Connect functionality to a great extent with the SOAP messaging and file-based integrations. And then also another exception I would say is the area of BI, where IFS use the Microsoft BI tools, where you actually have supported way of using SQL. But then we talk about accessing views and the information sources in a very packaged and good way to
and actually a separate
to
database.
have that BI inside IFS over sitting in the SQL server outside of IFS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the cases you just mentioned are specific. I mean, for instance, the second one with the BI is just reporting. It's it's a whole separate story. But when it comes to daily integrations, like for instance, you have a separate MES system, and now you have IFS Cloud.
Yes.
And previously, of course, MES system has to be integrated with your ERP, otherwise it will operate like an island. So it has to be. Now, you still have this MES system, no matter what vendor you have in mind, and you will jump to IFS Cloud world. What should you do to integrate it? You need to teach your MES system or ask the vendor to do that to communicate with the OData API, right? It's the only option.
It's the right option to use the REST OData API interface. So yeah, absolutely. It's the secure way to do it. It's a future-proof way to do it. It's part of a global standard with all ERP vendors adopt to and contribute to develop. And whether you choose one ERP system for all your system support, or you should go best of breed, you still need to start using it.
So, okay, the situation where you actually have a MES system that is developed and maintained by the vendor who have already implemented the new OData standard for IFS, this situation is relatively simple. I mean, you just count on the vendor and you just review the newer version, and you will probably upgrade the MES system version to the latest version that supports IFS Cloud API, and you're done. It sounds simple. It's not that simple, but it's way simpler than if you have your dedicated system that was created exclusively for you. Maybe it's a legacy system that has been that was created like 7 years ago in some old technologies like C++ or you name it. And how to deal with these creatures? I mean, it looks like it's not even. I mean, you can't even download some libraries for these old languages that will support the OData protocol, right? So how to deal with this?
The way we do it is, of course, we in the interaction with IFS, we use the REST OData connector back and forth, and then to the other systems that you need to integrate to. We have also a great number of connectors suitable for these systems and old standards like SOAP, XML, and file-based CSV files and whatnot, and also we have the ability to develop custom connectors for any system, basically.
But today we often have the situation where the customer has an integration platform. Sometimes it's even Novacura Flow, which makes it easier, but we often do integration to the integration platform. And there Novacura Flow has a very important part, as Klaus mentioned here, that we can interpret and manage and use our OData connector that will simplify that part of the integration.
Yeah. So we provide our integration capabilities pretty much in three levels, we can provide it as a integration full capability using Azure iPaaS functionality together with Novacura Flow. We can use Novacura Flow with any other iPaaS system integration platform of the customer's choice, or we can offer, or we can offer services that can help the customer build that knowledge and manage in whatever situation they have.
To sum it up, you sometimes put something in the middle between the legacy systems and the new IFS Cloud system that only accepts OData API, right? So you put something in the middle, you could call it a gateway or middleware, you name it. And then on one end, if this is Novacura Flow integration engine, then on one end it talks like freely with IFS Cloud because it has this pretty advanced OData connector, IFS Cloud OData connector, that also help you identify the differences between the new set of projections versus the older version, right, that you referred to. So this is pretty advanced connector, and it's almost visual. You don't code it. You could, but you can also select projections and endpoints from a list. So it somehow guides you when you build this integration. So on one end, it serves this capabilities, but on the other end, you could select among 50 plus connectors that Novacura Flow integration engine is equipped with. And you can integrate this solution with the legacy systems, for instance, or any other systems that don't support IFS Cloud directly, right? Mm-hmm. So you build this just translator, right? And it exchanges communicates from the old world to the new cloud. Yeah.
We mentioned it earlier. I mean, the situation is today that normally you will have a mix of very new solutions and old legacy systems. Yeah. And you need to be able to implement or upgrade IFS Cloud in that situation. You cannot ask them to upgrade everything, replace everything to get on the latest version of everything. That will never happen. It has never happened before, will never happen again. Yeah. So it is that capability. And I think IFS is extremely well positioned. IFS Cloud is extremely well positioned, both from an integration perspective, but also other technologies that they also have prepared in the framework, the technical framework of IFS Cloud. Mm-hmm. So the question or challenge for me is also, how can we speed up the use of the new technology as well? And there, the upgrade itself could be the starting point for that positive spin, not only looking at the problems at this point.
Yeah, I think it starts the whole new IT strategy. It's like a spark that should initiate not only the thinking about IFS Cloud Upgrade project itself, but also about how the future IT architecture should look like, right?
Yeah.
Again, especially because we have new technologies upcoming. I'm referring to AI and all these benefits that, I mean, we observe it on daily basis. No matter what tool you choose, you see some AI generated content in it, and it will come to IFS, it will come to other software like MES system with some predictions and, what would it be if, scenarios. And there will be more and more of these examples. You need to have this flexibility in your IT architecture to benefit from best of breed component together with like hardcore of your ERP, right?
Absolutely.
Can Novacura Flow, the integration engine, act as a full integration platform in that situation?
Yes, but it's not. We make use of parts of the Azure integration platform for routing and queuing and security and other things that makes our solution secure and scalable. And then pretty much for the orchestration of what needs to happen going into IFS and coming out of IFS is done in Novacura Flow then. So I think it's a great combination. We reached the aim of providing a very scalable and secure messaging platform with Azure features, and then we have the deep connector and orchestration capabilities with Novacura Flow. So I think that's great. And I saw the latest demo of it was also introducing AI-supported automatic mapping of messages to the IFS APIs, which was very impressive.
And we shouldn't forget about the marketplace of applications that
Yes.
we also maintain and constantly develop. That brings a lot of great examples of ready-made applications, but also some examples of components that you can use, treat it as a snippet and use in your project. So with that example, you see how to interact with IFS, how to retrieve some information, how to save some information in IFS. And if you take this as an example, you can merge it with your project, and you can build your own integration based on these examples. So I think we shouldn't forget about marketplace, because it's a great source of examples.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially important nowadays, because there is not so many consultants available on the market who know IFS Cloud API. This all 5,000 projections multiplied by 100 endpoints, right? So if you take a ready-made example and you see how does this work, then you simply copy it, tweak it, and you have your integration routine, right?
Great point. And
still you do it visually. I mean, it's a low-code integration designer. You still like create this flow in a visual way. So very rapid process. I like it. So it could be an option for those customers who haven't already chosen the integration platform for them. It's probably one of the simplest options, right? Because it's like all packaged into one solution, and you still get the ability to build mobile applications and automation and so on. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward. The last group of challenges is less specific, but I'm expecting that there are some other challenges, some other issues that you might face when you do the upgrade projects. Do you also observe some technical problems, maybe performance problems, things like that when you do the upgrades, according to your experience?
I can go first. I mean, it's. I think it's more about the confidence of actually starting the upgrade and knowing that we will wind up in a situation where we face a new problem, a new issue, a new task. And I think Novacura and our team and all other partners in IFS, everybody understands this. So I think what we built already when it comes to IFS Cloud is that we have built quite a good confidence in our ability to solve those issues. And sometimes it means that we are able now to add things to check before we start the upgrade. We have a longer checklist now. You have to think about this, you need to consider this. For instance, how do you store your documents? If you have 1 million old invoices stored in the Oracle database, you probably would like to think, okay, should we export them to an FTP location before we start the upgrade or not? Because there are could be issues around that. We have reported quite a lot of script fixes to IFS over the years now when we have done our upgrades. Small things that we have fixed for the customer, but then we also report it back to IFS so they can incorporate it in the standard version of the script. And that is, I think these type of issues, one way of solving it is to work very close with the customer and be very transparent and open with those issues and have a discussion about them, if possible in advance, but also right away when they occur. And I think all of our customers have been extremely good in that cooperation when we look at the big upgrades we've done. And we've done upgrades from very old versions, from 7.5 to cloud.
Directly to cloud.
Directly into cloud. And that was probably the first upgrade globally done as well.
I guess it was more like a migration than just upgrade?
No, the customer really wanted to upgrade because they want to keep the history. And at the same time, we also helped them consolidate on the enterprise asset management part where we sort of removed one solution used at two sites that we incorporated and migrated in at the same time as we did the upgrade. So that's why I'm so keen to say that all upgrades are individual in the sense that the situation for the customer is very specific.
But it looks like after 2 years of implementing this system, you have your experience. A lot of things has been already fixed by IFS because no one expected them to have like 100% ready version for the first release. It's impossible. especially when you consider that big systems as ERP systems are. But now, 2 years after, a lot of these baby, problems have been fixed, and you also have this experience on what to check before you start the upgrade. So you probably have a list of critical points that you need to examine and check and test before you actually schedule something in the upgrade project plan. The last thing is this general ability to solve the problems. If I understand you correctly, you can't assume that we currently know all the barriers and all the problems. Something will definitely
something will hit the fan.
Yeah, exactly. Without naming it.
But without name. But I think one thing that I've been looking into, I was managing myself actually an upgrade a year ago for not to IFS Cloud, but to IFS 10 at that point. But the thing that I really feel that IFS is a very stable solution. When it comes to the database, when it comes to the technology, when it comes to function, it is a very stable solution. And they've been able to incorporate that into IFS Cloud. Still a very stable solution. There are still some areas that where we know they will, where they will fill some gaps from a functional process perspective. But that is also, I mean, IFS invests heavily in IFS Cloud in terms of merging all the acquisitions, developing solutions. So I think having an old background in IFS, I feel much more comfortable today than I did 10, 15 years ago. I mean, it's easy compared to those days when it could be a little bit Wild West in certain projects. Yeah. But the thing here is that the biggest problem is not technical. It's more a attitude, mental thing to actually accept this change with a new cadence and to always be sort of proactive in making decisions. If not able to become proactive in quite a short time, you will face problem with your upgrade or your latest version in the Evergreen solution.
I think it's more related to organizational decisions and how you set up your roles and processes, and we'll talk about it in the next episode. To sum it up, there are some technical challenges. They are not very different. I'm trying to summarize the whole discussion that we had today. There are some technical challenges. They are not very different when you compare to the previous upgrades that, when we were upgrading to version 10 or something. The major one is actually the evergreen situation that you will face after upgrading to IFS Cloud. And if you want to benefit from the evergreen philosophy, you really need to eliminate modifications, right, from the equation. And there are several methods to do that, but this should be a solid part of your strategy, that you don't want modifications. You need to keep the ERP core free of modifications. And if you have a solid need, like, really justified need for a modification, some specific automation or whatever you need, then you need to consider to implementing it externally outside of the ERP to still keep the core free of modifications.
That would be recommended.
Yeah. For other challenges, they might occur. You simply need to be prepared for that. I would add that you should choose the right partner who has experience and has some other capabilities, because you didn't mention that, but I feel like Novacura Flow gives you also this kind of, it's a safety velvet. So whenever something doesn't work because we face performance issues or the mobility doesn't work as we anticipated, you can always build something in Novacura Flow, because it's a very flexible tool for automation, mobility, and for integrations, and you can bypass or even fix the problem in 100%, right? So it's another element that gives you this confidence, I think, Justin.
Yeah, I agree, but we don't want to. I don't want to oversell it in that sense. I think, as I said many times, not only in these webinars, how come the customers are not able to utilize all the existing functionality? So why don't explore internally as well a lot? Why don't really try to understand what is this package offering?
It's also, I think it's from a sense of actually addressing what you say. I think customers many times choose not to use IFS functionality because it seems a bit too complex for them.
I agree.
It's too hard to implement because it's so much to process and work and so many steps to go through and so on.
Yeah.
And with Novacura Flow, or for that matter, any other low-code platform, you can actually make it easier for the user community. You can automate, you can sort of pre-package a situation and automate them. And that will make it possible to use that functionality in IFS because in essence, it's great functionality, and you feel frustrated many times in the past that the customer can't convince the customer to use it because it's like a barrier. It's too much to deal with.
The front end was too complicated.
And they think they should educate the users in using it, and they just feel it's too much. And then we can package that knowledge into a simpler and more automated and context-based application for specific user roles, and that's great because they will use great functionality in IFS that way.
Just served differently in a simpler way. Thank you guys for today, and let's see in the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye. That's all for the episode number 3. I hope you liked it. I encourage you to watch the entire series of our webinars. We talk about possible upgrade strategies. We also try to convince you to upgrade to this latest IFS Cloud version. We share our experience when it comes to the challenges you may face when you do your own upgrade, and obviously we will help you plan your own IFS Cloud Upgrade project properly. Check the link below and get access to all the episodes. In the next episode, we will talk more about organizational challenges that you would most likely face when you do your own upgrade. You can find links to all the episodes in the description below the video. Please share it with your colleagues and others who are potentially interested in IFS Cloud Upgrade projects. Thank you.